Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing good. Welcome to Module 8 Motivation, Crisis and First Aid for Mental Health. Now we are commencing lecture 2 of this module. But before we get started, I would like to introduce myself. I am Akanksha Avasthi, a mental health professional and RCA registered clinical psychologist. I have been working here at Indian Institute of Technology Kanpur for past several years. So today's lecture is about psychological first aid. These are the table of contents. So introduction part is there, definition, what is psychological first aid, then what are the steps to provide immediate mental health support, how to refer someone who is in the crisis to professional help, what things should be taken care of, the importance of active listening in PFA, recognizing signs of distress and mental health needs, creating a safe and supportive environment for the person who is in the crisis, and follow up strategies for ongoing support. So, what is psychological first aid? I would like to tell you that psychological first aid is as important as physical first aid is. It is the first help you provide to someone who is in the crisis. It can be done by anyone, you or me. Anyone can do this. Definition is psychological first aid is an evidence based approach designed to help people in the immediate aftermath of a crisis, trauma, or disaster. It aims to reduce initial distress and foster short and long term functioning. Unlike traditional therapy, PFA is not a clinical intervention but a supportive response that can be delivered by trained individuals, including non professionals as well. It means when PFA should be provided. It can be provided in case of any kind of natural calamities, any accidents, any kind of physical or emotional or psychological abuse, if someone is having death of a loved ones or any kind of trauma or any kind of distressful situation, PFA should be given. You should also remember that this is not an alternative of the professional help, but this is the first thing you provide to someone. For example, someone has lost his home in the flood. That person doesn't need bandage or he doesn't have any fracture. The plastering thing is not there, but the person needs comfort, calmness, and supportive environment. So, this is what PFA is all about. PFA is guided by several core principles. These include ensuring safety, promoting calm, fostering a sense of self and community efficacy, connecting individuals with others, and instilling hope. The very first thing which we provide in PFA is when someone meets you, you have to take care of whether the person is feeling safe or not. Are the immediate requirements? Whether the person is feeling cold, whether the person is feeling lonely, whether the person wants to meet someone from his family member, what the exact need is and what to provide. The very first need which you can provide is providing the sense of safety and calmness. The second thing is calm and comfort. You have to make the person very, very comfortable. Just offering water or providing a blanket can make them feel calm. Sometimes you can make them calm and comfortable just by staying with them. Do not force them for anything and just assess and observe closely what are the requirements they are having. Then, self and community efficacy. You check what they can do and what they can't. Don't pressurize these people to do what they can't do. If they can walk till the nearest mental health camp or station, just offer them. If they want to talk to their family, just provide that support. The fourth thing is connectedness. They should feel that they are connected with someone. This brings calmness and relaxation in them. If they are lost, they are not able to see their family members. The person, the you or me, the PFA expert can provide the sense of connectedness to them. Hope. Hope is very important because when someone is devastated, they don't see what good can happen with them. They're just focusing on the negative things. By giving a sense of calmness, by listening to them, by offering them support, you can instill hope in them, which is a very crucial and important element of PFA. PFA, who, where, when. As I told you that in what conditions PFA can be given, who can give. Any individual who is trained to give PFA knowing the things, the elements, how to do it, can do the PFA. It is not required that the person should be a clinical psychologist or a medical doctor. Anyone can do it with proper training. When? As I told you earlier, in any kind of natural calamities, accident, death of a loved ones, psychological or physical abuse, or any kind of crisis situation, PFA can be given. You just need to take care of that there should be some privacy so that the person can feel comfortable while he or she is talking to you. The third thing is when. It should be given, or it should be a timely help. Just after the disaster or crisis, PFA should be given. There are few steps which are commonly and very popularly known as LLL: look, listen, and link. What we mean by look? Look means you have to observe very closely and carefully what are the needs of the person who is in the crisis. Look carefully means that if the person is feeling very cold, you have to offer him a blanket or something. If the person is thirsty, you can provide water. If you can see there is a physical injury which needs medical attention, you can take care of it as well. If the person is feeling very alone, lonely, or crying, you have to make the person calm and comfortable. So, whatever the immediate needs are, you have to observe these needs in a very careful manner and provide the intervention accordingly. Listen. Now, the second thing is you have to listen carefully. Sometimes, when people are in the crisis, they are not able to communicate properly whatever they are feeling at that point of time. Sometimes they feel devastated, sometimes they feel depressed, sometimes they are hopeless, sometimes they are severely anxious, and sometimes they are numb. They don't know how to react in that crisis situation. By listening carefully means you listen whatever they are not able to say also, by their non-verbal body language also, what they want to communicate. If a child is crying and looking around for anyone from his family, it means he is having a need to meet his family member. If a person is having severe pain and is continuously touching his arm or certain body part, you have to ask in a very calm and gentle manner whether you have any pain here. If someone is not able to communicate properly, then also you should respect that person's silence. You should not force the person to tell what he or she is feeling at that point of time. Give them some time and behave in a very patient manner. The third thing is link. You have to link the person to his family, to the medical aid if required, or to the local authorities where they can get further help. So, this link part is very important because you are the nodal point to think where the person should be assigned. If he is launching over family and his family is somewhere else, if you can make connection, you can do it. If the person needs professional help, like meeting a clinical psychologist, therapist, or doctor, then you can tell them about it. Or if it is possible for you, you can just accompany the person to the desired help. Now, the question comes how to refer. It is a very important step to know what things to be taken care of while you are referring a person who is in the crisis to the other professional bodies. When to refer? If you are seeing that there is persistent distress which is going on despite providing the comfort and despite providing the relaxation techniques you are giving, and the person is having some hallucinations or other kind of red alerts like he's severely distressed, he is showing some symptoms of mental health disorders, then you have to refer the person. It is done in the same way like when someone who is in the physical injury or physical need, you provide the first aid and then you think if the fracture is there, then I have to go to the orthologist. What help is required, which professional he should be referred to, you have to take care of. So it is very important to observe carefully. If the symptoms are persisting, then the person should be referred to the higher mental professionals. How to refer? The first thing is maybe sometime they are reluctant to take professional help. They are not ready because there is too much which is going on in their life at that point. They are also clueless. They are not trusting you. They are not understanding where to go, whom to talk, what to talk. At these points, you have to understand that patiently and empathetically, they should be understand that there is a need to go and meet a mental health or physical health professional. That is very much important because you have to do it in a very tactful manner and not this should not be enforced on them. Provide information on available resources. If urgent, assist practically, provide contacts, help with appointments, or if possible, please accompany them also. Now, the last thing which is very important, follow up after the referral. So, you have referred someone to the mental health professional, and what happens? You're not sure whether the person is meeting the professional or not. So, you have to take a follow up session to assess whether the person is meeting. Secondly, if it is required to have regular follow up sessions, you can push the person very calmly that you have to meet the professional on a regular basis. It is highly required for you and it would be helpful as well. Now, the fourth and very important point is active listening. So, what we mean by active listening? The trait of active listening or this quality of active listening is very important in our general life also. Whenever you are listening to someone in a very active manner, this shows that you are paying attention to that person. You are concerned about that person. If you are listening half heartedly, you are looking somewhere else, looking at your watch, looking at people around you, or you are just not maintaining proper eye contact, this shows that you are not active listening to the person. In the active listening, you have to take care of multiple things. It also involves paying full attention, which means maintaining eye contact. Here also you have to be careful that maintaining eye contact doesn't mean that you are staring the person. It can make the person uncomfortable. When you are maintaining the eye contact means you are looking at the person for a very brief time, you are looking somewhere else and then again you are maintaining the eye contact. Whenever they are telling you something which is very important for them, you are nodding also. So, body language is also combined when you are doing the active listening. The second point is you have to ask open ended questions if you want to make the active listening very, very effective. What we meant by open ended questions? There are two types of questions. One is open ended, and the second one is where answer is very clear, right? It is in the yes or no. So, in the open ended questions, you give the person two possibility so that they can tell more about themselves. So, how you are feeling now? It's an open ended question. So, are you feeling good? It's not an open ended question, it's a closed one. Either the person will say yes or no. So, ask open ended questions to the person who are in the crisis because, in that way, if something is bothering them, they can also communicate in an effective manner. You also have to encourage the person to speak more. This encouragement can be verbal and non verbal as well. Just by nodding, just giving the person time to speak, have a patient listening, it's all combined in the effective and active listening. Now, the fifth and very important thing which should be discussed here is recognizing the signs and symptoms. Recognizing the symptoms, the whether the person is getting benefited or the person is in distress or not. So, I have provided you a chart here, you can look at it. Common reactions to stress and their symptoms. Emotional reactions are there, physical reactions are there, behavioral and cognitive reactions are there. So, these all get combined and become the stress response. So, if there is persistent worsening of symptoms, it indicates that the person should be referred to the mental health professionals. Emotional means there should be anxiety, there should be fear, there should be guilt. The person should be feeling these kind of negative emotions when the person is in the crisis. It means things are not going well with him. Physical symptoms are there. There should be some headache, there should be injury, there should be physical pain, some kind of swelling is there. This should be considered important and should be taken care of. The third one is behavioral. The person is not talking to someone. The person is being aggressive. The person doesn't participate in the discussions. The person is not coming out if you are asking for anything. He's not speaking to you, not maintaining eye contact. These are the behavioral symptoms of stress which should be taken care of as well. The cognitive symptoms are the person is in confusion, difficulty in concentrating. Sometimes they are having difficulty in recalling things. If you're asking about their address, their family, maybe because of too much emotional pain, their cognitive abilities also get distracted. You have to take care of if these things are happening in a moderate level or mild level. It is important because the person is in the crisis. But if too much of these things are happening or you are seeing a gradual worsening of the symptoms, the person should be referred to the mental health and health professionals. The sixth point is creating a safe and supportive environment for the person who is in the crisis. Ensure physical safety. If there is some physical hazards around them which can be dangerous for them, just remove those things. In a case of emotional or marital abuse or any kind of psychological abuse, the first thing is providing the physical safety. Make the person away from the physical abuser should be the first step. If it is too much, then that person's signs like symptoms, like a rape victim girl, maybe the girl is too much distressed to meet strangers, specifically male people. So the girl should provide that sense of emotional safety that it is okay to not meet these person for a limited amount of time. For the psychological safety, the person should be away from the person who is providing the abuse to them. If there is a loss of loved one, the memories which are associated with that person should not be immediately kept in front of person. Definitely, you can't forcefully take away these things from the person, but very calmly you can just shift the person's focus from those things to the positive and other things. Offer comfort and reassurance. Providing comfort and providing reassurance is very important, but remember, don't give false promises to the person who is in the crisis. Those promises which you can't fulfill, don't do it. They are facing some difficulties in life, and which is very true. Tell them, yes, sometimes this happens, and we will be handling this thing in a very good manner, and I'll be supporting you. In that way, you are providing the assurance, but you are not telling the person that everything will be all right without doing anything. You can also tell them about the immediate coping strategies like relaxation, breathing exercise, distraction techniques, and grounding techniques so that their attention and their mental set can be shifted from the calamity problem towards the positivity. Demonstrate cultural sensitivity and respect. You have to take care of that person's cultural or society values and norms. So if you will take care of it, the person will be more comfortable, and this shows empathy from your side as well. Encourage empowerment, offering choice and control. Maintain privacy and confidentiality whenever possible. You should never post the stories of crisis survivors without taking their permission. You should not tell these things to others, because in that way they will feel that you have betrayed their trust. You have to give them a sense of confidentiality as well, that you will take care of it. Don't tell these things to others in a very casual manner, because this can hurt their sentiments. Follow-up strategies. These are the follow-up strategies which we have to take care if we want to provide the effective follow-up. Check-ins. Sometimes it's not possible for you to go and meet the crisis survivor in a physical mode. Then you can use the technology. You can just simple text, you can call the person, you can send email if it is possible, how things are going on in his or her life. A simple check-in, just one reminder that there is someone who is taking care of them. Second thing is reinforce coping. So you have to take care and understand what is going right in their lives. So they should not only focus on things which are not going in a bad direction, what is going wrong in their life. They can also focus on what is going good. Like if they are not having any serious physical injury, they can focus on that. If they are able to connect with their family, their children, their spouse, it's God's grace. So you can enforce and you can teach them multiple coping strategies which can help them. Like in the previous modules, I have told you journaling technique, creative expressions, writing techniques, many kinds of mindful and grounding techniques are helpful at this stage. Promote self care. Promoting self care is very important because in that way the person take care of his or her physical as well as psychological needs. Physical need means taking proper sleep, a good sleep for at least 8 to 9 hours. If the person is suffering from insomnia or he is having sleep disturbances, the person should be referred to the mental health professional. The person should take balanced diet, nutritional diet, so that they can get proper nutrients in their body. Their gut health should be good. The third thing is taking care of their psychological needs. They should feel safe, they should feel comfortable, they should have proper hygiene settings where they are staying. They should also have proper connection towards the higher authorities from where they can get help, towards their family, and towards the social support. Monitor changes. You have to be very closely observing whether the changes are there or not, whether the person's symptoms are worsening or the symptoms are improving. Also, support reintegration, help reconnect with routines and community activities. Lastly, it is very important to understand that as a PFA caregiver, you also have to take care of your mental and physical health, because sometimes it becomes too much tiring for you to take care on yourself. But in the long run, it can be a reason for chronic stress and it will impair your mental and physical functioning. So, what things you can do to take care of yourself? The first thing is supporting someone in crisis is emotionally intense. So, you can take mini breaks. You can just hydrate yourself, drink juice or plain water. This can be very helpful. Deep breathing. You can do box deep breathing, or you can do simple mindfulness based techniques. You can also do the grounding techniques. So, what they can do, they'll just shift your mental set from the things which are going around you to the mental peace, and you will be grounded to what is going on in your mind. If it is too much traumatic for you and it is making you think about your own trauma in the past, just take a small break and get away from the situation. Try to practice some resilience and then come back. The second thing is process after. Debrief with a peer or journal to reflect. Yes, you have to maintain the confidentiality, but you can discuss with any of your close friends, or you can write down whatever you had in your mind while it was going on, while you were there, while you were supporting people. So, by doing this, you are debriefing, telling yourself what actually happened and what is your emotional reaction to that particular situation. Know your own limits. Always remember, if you are a PFA expert, you are not a mental or physical health expert. You are only providing the very first help to the person who needs support. But if you think it is too much, then you have to redirect the person to the other mental health or physical health professionals. You can be a real hero by learning and providing psychological first aid when the time comes. These are the resources which you have to go through to get the better understanding. Thank you very much.